fourth grade?
Good afternoon, Ms. Garza.
Okay, I'm very happy that you do have your devices with you. We are going to use them a little later as part of this lesson. However, right now I am going to ask that you leave them next to you and make sure that if you have them on, that the sound is off. Okay? Great. Okay, fourth grade. So you know that you have a very important project coming up, your GT project on enigmas. So part of doing projects is actually doing research. And in order for you to have like good information, you have to be able to identify what we call primary and secondary sources. Okay? This morning, some of you, well, all of you took the pretest. I do have those results, and I'll share that with you later. So, and some of you were right on. Some of you are kind of like halfway there, and some of you are going to learn a lot from this lesson here. So if you just kind of want to follow along, primary and secondary sources, learn the difference and choose correctly. Okay? So going on. Let's see. So we're going to ask ourselves, how can I tell the difference between a primary and a secondary source? Or what in the world is Ms. Garza talking about? Right? And you have to be able to learn how to differentiate between the two so that you can use that information for your projects. And not only now, boys and girls, but do you think the resources that you use in the library are just for now, or will you be able to use them later?
Later.
Later. Like say, can you use something like maybe when you're doing research in 5th grade?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So going on.
Connect to the internet.
Yeah, we'll connect to the internet in a little bit, don't worry. So, what is a primary source? And I put the little face like, because some of you might have felt that way earlier, but that's okay. It says primary sources are original records. I emphasize original. And they're original records of political, economic, artistic, scientific, social, and intellectual thoughts and achievements of specific historical periods. Huh? I keep doing that, and because sometimes you might wonder, what is she just saying? Okay, let's just ignore that bottom part. So for example, a primary source is something that happened during that time. You will be learning about enigmas. Enigmas are natural occurrences that sometimes there's no explanation for that. So when you use a primary source, boys and girls, if you're going to talk about the 1920s, a primary source would be something that was from the 1920s. Now, you know that we've been advancing in technology, communication, and things like that. Primary sources sometimes will be like old documents with those dates. You understand? The person that wrote that was there. A reporter, a photographer. That's what it means like to have a primary source. So again, if you still have the little hop, that's okay. We're going to continue learning about it. Okay, so primary sources were produced by the people who participated in and witnessed the past. Examples include audio, images, objects, clothing, videos, film, would be images. Objects could be like tools, pottery, gravestones, statistics, and text. That's what they mean about primary sources. All of those have happened during that historical period. So, for example, what? A mosquito. Ooh. For example, if Ms. Nagel tells you, boys and girls, I need something from the 1950s. Who wants to raise their hand and give me an example of a primary source from the 1950s that you could think of?
A diary?
A diary, okay. And would it be written by somebody now, or would it be during the 1950s? Good. How about back there?
A picture?
A picture. Good. What else?
Clothing of someone, clothing that belonged to someone who was in that time.
Yeah. Do we dress the same as like from the 1950s?
No.
Oh no. Believe me, it's different. So yeah, that's a good example too. How about somebody from this side over here? What do you think? Something, yeah, like a weapon, military, yeah, that's great.
Artifacts.
Artifacts. Any of these things, but they have to be from what time period? 1950s. What if she says, give me something from the 1920s? What do you think?
Like letters?
Letters. Would it be a letter written now about the 1920s?
No. Be somebody who actually lived in the 1920s and wrote that letter.
Good. Did you hear that? Someone who was actually alive and wrote that letter. Yes, excellent. Did you have?
A picture of someone or something from the 1920s.
Yeah, and usually the pictures in the past very good are in what type of format? Black and white. Yes. Old fashioned. But with technology now, we're actually adding color now. So good. Those are very, very good idea for primary sources. So do you think you're understanding more or less?
Yes.
If Ms. Nagel says you're going to do your research on enigmas, but I want more primary sources versus secondary sources. Okay, so you still have that little face, Well, how do primary and secondary sources differ? Like, what's the difference between them? So we're going to watch this video, and this explains it, like, really well. And I hope it has audio. I'm going to pause it. I've got the mute button. Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
See? So, you guys are such awesome helpers. These are examples of primary sources, like what you talked about. Primary source. Documents. Now, secondary source. Okay, I'm going to pause it really quick. Alyssa, can you read what it says there?
Secondary source. Secondary source. A secondary source tells you about an event that but is from a time after the event. A secondary source usually talks about primary sources.
Okay, so do you understand the difference? The primary source is someone that was there. Like MLK, was his speech a primary source? He was there, he delivered it at that time. Secondary source tells you about that event, but from a different point of view, almost. You know what I'm saying? A secondary source usually talks about the primary source. If Ms. Nagel tells you, I want you to write about the I Have a Dream speech, you will use the primary source to get your information, but you will be the what?
Secondary source.
Yes, because you're writing about that. Were you there during MLK? No. Okay, so does it start to get a little clear?
Yes.
Or are we clear as mud? All right, let me go ahead and continue. These are examples. Textbooks. Magazines. Do we have textbooks here in school?
Yes.
So are those primary or secondary sources?
Secondary.
And that is the best example of a secondary source. You're learning about all this information from the past because they're writing about it. Okay, magazines, encyclopedias. So what do you think? Is a speech primary or secondary source?
Primary.
Very good. See if you're right. Good. let's continue. And let's practice. So, if I'm here and I'm telling you, you know what, boys and girls, last night I was watching ESPN, that's a sports channel. And one of the reporters said he had heard good reviews about a new sports movie. When he talks about the movie, what is he? Would he be a primary source or a secondary source? And I see some of you kind of going like this. What do you think?
Secondary source.
Okay, do you think he's secondary source? You are correct, by the way, just didn't put the answers. At school, we use textbooks to learn about the history of the United States. When we use textbooks, what are we using, everybody?
Secondary.
That's the best example to know. Okay, so how do primary and secondary sources differ? Okay, honey, do you want to read that first?
While primary sources are the original records by first-hand witness of an event, secondary sources are documents, texts, images, and objects about an event created by someone who typically reference the primary sources for information. Textbooks are excellent examples of secondary sources.
Okay, so any questions on that? I mean, we're going to practice some more, of course. We're not going to learn it all. We're just going to get very familiar with it. Yes?
So a secondary source is like something about the past, but didn't happen at that time.
Right. Right. Secondary sources. So, when you do your project, what are you going to use to get the information? Primary or secondary sources?
Secondary.
Okay, if you're using, for example, you'll use secondary sources if you're reading about it, for example, where? Library books.
Internet.
The internet. What if you want magazines? Very good. What if Ms. Nagel asked you to use primary sources?
You can use pictures to help us know what it looks like.
Okay, you can use pictures, but would it be pictures what's happening now, or what would make the pictures primary sources?
Like it was before,
Pictures
back then.
Back then, or like say if your event was from the 1960s, the pictures have to be from when?
1960s.
Right, it could be pictures, and again, clothing, artifacts, and you'll learn. Again, this is just kind of like a little review, and of course, if you have questions, you know, we're here to help you as well. Okay? Clear as mud, like I like to say?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay, so really quick, while I get some handouts ready, what I want you to do is go ahead and turn on your devices. All of you know how to log in, username and password. And this will be turned off. We're going to play Kahoot. I know you're familiar with that one. This is for a grade, by the way. Just kidding. No.
I don't want to play.
You know what? Yeah. If you didn't have a device, honey, you can get an iPad. I have them over there in front of the big microphone. Who else is to borrow an iPad? Go ahead and the card's right over there, honey. Go ahead and open it. And they should be charged as well. The rest of you log in. Got it? Okay, good. I don't know why I went to the Kahoot and it didn't give me the actual website.
They went to Yahoo for me.
Right? Oh, that's... I need to actually log on to the website.
Are you going to play with us, Ms. Garza?
Well, I already know all the answers. So I want to, you know.
It's a game of speed.
I almost beat my teacher last time.
You did.
I almost beat her.
Almost as good.
I was like, wait, Miss Garza, my strength is too loading. Miss Garza, can I
Yes, you can. You need to move up. Okay, so we got our phone, tablets, laptops, everything is logged on. Okay. There, back. Give me a thumbs up when you're in.
So we just put our name.
Yeah, just put your first name. Or if you want to put your initials, that's fine too. Give me a thumbs up. I'm waiting for more thumbs up. Yes, remember that's your username and password. Like when you do AR?
Can we do nicknames?
I think it is, yeah, exactly the way you do AR. Now, let's do your first name. Okay, I'm getting a lot of thumbs up. I have 14 players. 17.
Who's 18? Is everybody in? What is your letters?
I have a game called Cool Frowns Pro, and it's super
Log in, you gotta accept it. Continue.
You have 18 years.
So I just did
Done. There you are.
Right? Now
Now we put your name for now. Yes, next time you can do that. See, but I don't know all your nicknames for now. Okay, I'm waiting for like 2 more people.
Who's Jack? Who is it? Like Jagger.
Okay, I know there's 21. Do you have anybody absent?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, here we go. We ready? All right, give me 5. Mouths closed, eyes on mute, ears listening, bodies are still, and fingers are ready to learn.
Oh my god. 5 questions. Barely learned it. Cars.
It's a quiz. Is the following a primary or a secondary source? It's a historical map of the Bernie district of Chicago.
Oh man, I got it wrong here.
Okay. Ready? B6, pay attention. Here we go.
Who's
Okay.
Jim?
Here we go. What is an example of a secondary source? Textbooks, a camera, original maps, oral history. Secondary sources.
Victor, I'm coming for you. I am coming for you.
Okay, these 2 right here, pay attention. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. Read the question carefully.
Okay.
Primary sources are unoriginal records. True or false? Primary sources are unoriginal records. Well, because primary records are what type? Sophia, where's Sophia? Okay, here we go. Flyer Dictionary is a primary source, secondary source, both, or neither? Okay, here we go. D7.
I got it right.
All right, Maddie.
Maddie's back.
Is the following flyer a primary or secondary source? It's a boycott, America versus Asia, progress versus retro.
I forgot which one was which.
I remember which it was. I just
So good job. All right, give me 5. You're still going to use your devices for this next activity. However, you're just going to probably use Google for now. So you can probably exit out of this. Good job. Did you guys enjoy the little quiz?
Yeah.
And the winner is Maddie. Let's give him a round of applause. All right, really quick. We're going to exit from here. That was a lot of fun.
Go to Google.
Okay. So that was your kind of crash course, and we expect you to be experts now. Just kidding. We're going to keep practicing. All right, so I'm going to pass out this handout. It's kind of like your exit ticket also, just on what you can recollect from the PowerPoint or from the quiz, or some of you already had your prior knowledge. But let me go ahead and pass these out. I will get you pencils, so hold on to the pen. It's front and back, by the way. So, what I want you to Google is examples of primary sources. There you go. There's 3 of you in here? Can you get your pencils? If you have an extra, just hold on to it.
I'm very fast.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you. Please. And there's some. Okay, the rest of you, give me 5. Eyes up here, listening, thinking, hands are still. If you go to the first part for now, it's asking you what it really means. As soon as you get your pencil, please write your name. Thank you. Very good. Yeah, go look at this page. It's double-sided. I want you to look at this one first. Have enough pencils?
Yeah, I think I did just
Yeah, I think there should be. Awesome. Okay, let's see. Everybody's ready. We have our names. Okay, give me a thumbs up. You wrote your name. And then all eyes up here. Okay. So what you're going to do, boys and girls, is you're going to look at this chart. Now, if you look at it, it's actually giving you information under primary. What does primary say, everyone, together? Not
coming from something else.
original. So original. Okay, right next to it, it says first hand, and what does that mean?
Coming directly from the original source.
Circle the word original. Now we keep hearing the word source, source, source. What is the source, by the way? What does it say there in the middle?
A person, publication, or object that gives information.
Very good. At the bottom, we have secondary, okay? What does the first one say, secondary?
Coming from or created using an original source.
Yes, so it's information used from the primary source. Okay, right next to it, it says secondhand.
Not original, taken from someone or something else.
And that's what I want you to circle. Circle not original. Okay? Later on, when you go back to class, you are going to look at these definitions, and in the box, you're going to write your own words. What do you think is a primary source based on what you learned with the PowerPoint? And yes, you'll be able to use your device just to kind of remember the information. And then in your own words, tell me what you learned or what you think a primary source is. Okay? You're going to fill in the rest of the boxes the same way, using your own words or examples. The one we're going to work on right now is that second page. And that's why I told you to have your devices ready. You're just going to brainstorm examples of primary sources. And just kind of fill in the bubbles. Use your device. If your device is not working, maybe you can pair up with the person next to you. But just Google that information, primary sources, or if you remember them from the presentation or from the quiz, just start listing them. Okay? So go ahead and work on that now. Primary sources from what you remember, from the quiz, from the PowerPoint, from your prior knowledge. Okay, we're going to do this one first. We're going to list primary and secondary sources.
So we just do.
Yeah, for right now here and with me, you're just going to do the little web.
No, but just primary or second?
No, just primary. All the examples of primary sources. Good. I like that. Good. Wow, some of you are filling in that web right away.